Good morning, I'm Harley from the LaRouche Organization with your daily video update for April 11th, 2025. I want to begin by going through some events that are coming up in the schedule, because I think it's crucial that as you listen to these updates, you think about what you can do to move other people into action. Because right now, we need an active population, active citizens, to push the country in the right direction. It's an enormous potential for that to happen, but it requires an initiation from the citizens themselves. So let me go through the schedule quickly. Today at 11 a.m., that's this Friday, there will be a Zoom call from the International Peace Coalition. This has gone on every week for almost 100 weeks. This week's will include an extremely important discussion of events in Southwest Asia. There'll be a link for this in the description section of today's update. Then secondly, for May 24th and May 25th, I know it's a long way off, but we really need to build this now. It's the Schiller Institute National Conference. There'll be a registration link in the description section also. Then I'll again put a link to the dialogue between Helga, Zepp-LaRouche and Jack Matlock, which took place on Wednesday. Extremely interesting discussion. Matlock is one of the eyewitnesses at the time of the dissolution of the Soviet Empire. He was on the scene, and he's still highly thoughtful and cogent at 95 years old. So I urge you to look at that. And then finally, last night I had some fun. I was supposed to write an article for our publications on the whole issue of the tariffs. I find it so, in a sense, amusing that I channeled my old friend Tevye the dairyman from Sholem Aleichem for a discussion of what's actually going on. You call this the art of the deal, so that will be posted on my page at the LaRouche Organization website, probably by the end of the weekend. So look for that. So for your questions, since this is a Friday, a bunch of people wrote in and asked, where's the tariff fight going? Trump, as you know, said that April 9th would be Liberation Day, the day of all the tariffs. And then on that day, he gave a 90-day pause. So I think there are two things I can say definitively. One, we are headed toward a trade war with China, which is a disaster. The idea of delinking with China will be devastating for the U.S. economy. It's not going to bring back jobs. It's going to exacerbate a tension with a country that could be our ally in cooperation in creating a new development order that breaks the power of the global oligarchy. So that's the first point. And to break this, to change this, Trump has to talk to Xi Jinping. This is a crucial potential for the United States to not only avoid a war, but to create the circumstances for global prosperity. Now, my second point is on the tariffs. I have no idea where Trump's going with it. He clearly wanted to send a message. His message, which is somewhat muddled because of all the people who are talking about it, but the message is that the present global system doesn't function. As LaRouche pointed out repeatedly, if you keep going in this boom and bust cycle based on speculation and free trade, you're going to eventually blow out the world economy, and we're moving closer and closer to that point. Now, here's my personal concern, and I think it's a concern of the LaRouche Organization overall. There are three leading advisors to Trump on policy, economic and trade policy, who I don't think are worthy of being trusted. One is Peter Navarro. And I won't say anything more about him other than I think Elon Musk hit the nail on the head that Navarro is not the brightest light in the chandelier. Secondly, Stephen Miran, the chairman of the Council of Economic Advisors. His name instead of Miran should be Moron. He, in his speech recently defending the idea of huge tariffs, he said that the reason for these tariffs is that we have to protect the power of the United States. So he's almost channeling Dick Cheney and the program for a new American century and so on, the unipolarists, by saying that the U.S. is the great power, the great hegemon, and our policies have to prevail. And he said they have brought the world the greatest period of peace and prosperity in history. This is a guy who's clearly deluded. With all the wars of the last 30 years, with the economic crises one after another, this is the greatest period of peace and prosperity. How can a man like this, with this kind of delusion, be the chairman of the Council of Economic Advisors? And the third person is Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary. Bessent is a Soros operative. He came from the George Soros hedge fund school. He's run operations to destroy currencies in the past and to make a fortune. And when he was asked about European cooperation with China, he said if they do that, it would be like cutting one's own throat. Bessent is another one not to be trusted. So this grouping around President Trump is probably partly responsible for the confusion that we've seen in the last days. And instead of maintaining a clear, solid message of putting an end to the corporate globalization going back to the founding of the World Trade Organization, it's gotten muddled. A totally muddled message. And that's terrible at a point when the United States should be taking leadership. Now, the second question I got was from a few of you, any expectations from the U.S.-Iran direct or indirect talks? Well, the most important point is, let's hope it's serious. Witkoff, who's going to be heading the U.S. delegation to Oman, is a serious guy, and he does have Trump's trust. He seems to have his head on straight. What his mission is in these initial talks, we'll find out. But it's important that the United States not be sucked in to a war with Iran right now, which benefits who? It benefits the Israel lobby, it benefits the global corporate cartels, because it would be an assault against the BRICS nations. Iran is not only a member of the BRICS, but Iran is playing a role in coordinating with the global South, especially through its cooperation with China. So it's the fact that the Iranians want to talk and that President Trump wants to talk with them is a good sign. But again, a good intent means nothing if you don't have a strategy. Now that's why I want to get to this final point. The thing about Trump is that he often contradicts himself and loses the sense of direction that's necessary. For example, one day he says, nothing is going to change in these tariff policies. We're going to stick to what I've laid out. And then the next day, everything's changed, and he says, we must be flexible. Well, it's okay to be flexible, but you have to get the policy right. Now, that's why I think it ultimately comes down to people making sure that the LaRouche idea of physical economy is the one that's taken up in whatever talks the United States is involved in. Lyndon LaRouche has an absolutely clear record as a forecaster and also as one putting forward economic policies and strategic policies that would benefit the whole world. He has a completely clear, transparent record of being right. And increasingly we see people, whether it's Russia, India, South America, including in the United States, people following what LaRouche is saying and demanding that that be the approach taken by the United States. So I think what I'm basically saying is that you have to help us chart a course for the country. And if the United States goes back on the right course, that is the course of economic development perspective, investment in science and technology, regulated credit system that has credit available for entrepreneurs, inventors, and producers, If we do that, and that's LaRouche's 4 laws, and then allocate whatever surplus we have of about 5% GDP into research and development in science and new technologies, we'll be fine. We can't promise a golden age, but we'll be fine. This is how the United States became the economic power coming out of World War II that has protected the American people and improved some aspects of the global strategic situation when the U.S. is doing what's right. President Trump has a responsibility to avoid wars and to ensure that we have an economic program that has not been hijacked by the corporate cartels. For that to happen, more Americans need to understand what is the American system of economics and how to get it implemented. And that means working with LaRouche, studying his ideas. That's why I'm putting all these various links in the description box today. Finally, let me just mention that one other thing that I had not included before is that I'm going to do another interview with my friend Sean from the SGT report. Many of you have listened to these interviews in the past. He's a very reliable interviewer, and this will probably be available early next week. So as soon as it's available, I'll put a link to it in the description section. So I've just laid out a strategy for making an improvement for the whole world based on the general welfare, based on cooperation for mutual benefit. And I hope you'll take the time to look at these interviews, look at these articles that I'm posting, and be with us, join us, be active, get your friends involved, challenge people. That's what it's going to take for us to bring down the oligarchy and put the world in a direction of peaceful cooperation and development. So have a good weekend. See you next week.